In recent months, former President Donald Trump has taken his rallies to new extremes, veering further away from traditional campaign rhetoric and into bizarre territory that leaves even his staunchest supporters scratching their heads. In a recent series of speeches, including events in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Gastonia, North Carolina, Trump has made waves with strange comments about imaginary friends, insane asylums, and his supposed racecar driver friends. As 2024 approaches, Trump's increasingly surreal and disconnected style raises serious questions. Is he alienating crucial voter demographics, or is this strategy designed to cement a more radical base? This video explores Trump's recent series of odd remarks and interactions, from his imaginary friend Hannibal Lecter to his attempts to position himself as a protector of women. We'll analyze how these statements reflect his broader campaign strategy and examine the reaction they've stirred among voters, media, and political commentators. Ultimately, these speeches reveal a lot about Trump's understanding of his audience and his evolving role in American politics. But as the former president doubles down on his eccentric public persona, the real question remains, is this helping or hurting his chances in 2024? Hannibal Lecter and insane asylums. Unpacking Trump's imaginary friend. In North Carolina, Trump referenced an unusual friend from popular culture, Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the iconic fictional cannibal from Silence of the Lambs. Trump's comments took on an almost theatrical quality as he explained his supposed camaraderie with this notorious character. Dr. Hannibal Lecter, there's nobody worse than him, Trump said, following up with references to insane asylums and mental institutions. The metaphor was a strange one, especially considering Lecter is not someone most politicians would compare themselves or their friends to. Trump's use of Lecter as a symbol for national threats highlights his penchant for blending pop culture with political rhetoric, often to connect with audiences through humor. But while his supporters might view this as an entertaining quirk, critics argue it reflects a concerning trend: Trump's inability to articulate policy without dipping into surreal, exaggerated language. For many independents and traditional Republicans, Trump's casual references to a fictional cannibal may seem out of touch with the gravity of national concerns, especially when compared to the straightforward policy discussions his rivals offer. Even though some found the metaphor humorous, others questioned its relevance, especially given Trump's frequent assertion that insane asylums represent the types of dangerous elements he claims the U.S. government is letting into the country. Trump's opponents and neutral observers alike found the use of Lecter a perplexing choice, further distancing Trump from traditional political discourse. Protecting women? Trump's odd rhetoric on gender. In the same speech, Trump made a point to speak about his self-assigned role as the protector of women. Addressing the audience, he proclaimed, "I am going to protect you as your president." Trump claimed that not one hand went up when he asked a crowd of women if they were offended by this declaration. While Trump sees himself as a defender, his repeated insistence that he alone can protect women has raised eyebrows and stirred backlash, especially among female voters who feel this rhetoric is patronizing. For critics, Trump's self-appointed role as protector is just another example of his paternalistic view of women, which many argue is outdated and out of step with contemporary attitudes. Rather than addressing gender issues like pay equity, healthcare access, and reproductive rights, Trump has repeatedly framed women's concerns as issues of physical safety that he, as a strong leader, can shield them from. This approach has increasingly alienated women voters, particularly among suburban and independent women, a demographic crucial for any candidate in the 2024 race. His appeal to women relies heavily on a traditionalist, almost antiquated, view of gender roles that does not resonate with the majority of today's female electorate. Trump's racecar driver friends, relating through pop culture. In an attempt to connect with blue-collar voters, Trump has frequently referred to his supposed racecar driver friends. In Gastonia, he claimed to have a lot of racecar driver friends and even mentioned his involvement in a job down the road in Charlotte, a reference to his ties with the NASCAR community. While Trump's attempts to align himself with working-class culture are not new, his racecar driver analogy struck many as a strange comparison, especially as he elaborated that being president is as dangerous as professional racing. For many, this seemed like an unnecessary and possibly offensive overstatement. While NASCAR drivers face physical risks on the track, the role of the U.S. president involves entirely different types of responsibilities and risks. This comment, though perhaps intended to be relatable, backfired among certain audiences. Many felt Trump trivialized the presidency by likening it to a sport, minimizing the gravity of the role and the impact a president has on the lives of American citizens. Fake news. Trump's war on the media. Trump's long-standing feud with the media resurfaced with renewed intensity during these rallies. He reiterated his disdain for fake news, though he claimed the term no longer accurately captures the scope of media corruption. Trump's fake news rhetoric has been a cornerstone of his political persona, serving both to delegitimize negative coverage of his presidency and to rally his supporters against mainstream media. For Trump's base, this anti-media stance reinforces their belief in his role as an outsider battling against a biased establishment. However, after nearly a decade of hearing the phrase fake news, some independent voters and even previous supporters are beginning to tire of the refrain. At a time when the electorate is increasingly concerned with concrete policies and solutions, Trump's repeated focus on attacking the media can feel like a distraction from pressing issues. Family lineage and genes. Trump's comments on intelligence. In one of the most controversial portions of his speech, Trump ventured into the realm of genetics, referencing his late uncle, John Trump, who taught at MIT, to explain his belief in the role of genes in intelligence. This comment, which some viewed as an endorsement of eugenics, suggested Trump believes intelligence and capability are hereditary traits, especially within his own family. This isn't the first time Trump has referenced his uncle in relation to his own intellect, and while it may seem like a harmless anecdote to some, it carries undertones that make many Americans uncomfortable. Trump's mention of genes can be interpreted as elitist, suggesting he feels inherently more qualified than others due to his family lineage. This has raised alarms, particularly among communities sensitive to discussions of race and equality, as eugenics has a dark history tied to discrimination and inequality. By relying on his family background to project an image of intelligence, Trump risks alienating those who prioritize individual achievement and equality over perceived innate ability. Climate change denial and nuclear warming. Trump has long been a skeptic of climate change science, but his recent remarks took his denial to new heights. He claimed that the greatest environmental threat isn't global warming or climate change, but rather nuclear warming. Trump's dismissive comments about rising sea levels, who the hell cares? Sparked outrage among climate-conscious voters and activists. His rhetoric undermines the urgency with which many Americans view climate change. By downplaying it as a trivial concern, Trump places himself at odds with a significant portion of the electorate, including younger voters who rank climate action as a top priority. His comments also stand in stark contrast to those of world leaders and scientists who have called for immediate action to prevent irreversible damage to the planet. Threatening rivals. The case of Liz Cheney. In an escalation of his rhetoric against political opponents, Trump made thinly veiled threats against Republican Liz Cheney, whom he described as a bully. He suggested she should face the enemy with a gun in her hand, implying she wouldn't have the courage to confront real danger. This statement followed a pattern in Trump's rhetoric that often veers into violent territory when discussing opponents. For many Americans, this type of language from a former president is deeply unsettling. As political violence rises in the U.S., Trump's threats contribute to a dangerous environment where political disagreements are framed as literal battles. Many believe this kind of rhetoric sets a troubling precedent for future political discourse. A shift in the conservative base? Evidence from evangelical and LDS communities. Over the past few months, growing numbers of traditionally conservative communities have voiced dissatisfaction with Trump's behavior. Evangelicals, LDS members, and other groups once considered a core part of Trump's base are beginning to distance themselves, expressing disillusionment with his leadership style. This shift could have profound implications for the 2024 election. For Trump, the erosion of support among these groups indicates a potential loss of a critical voter base, one that played a pivotal role in his previous election campaigns. As Trump's speeches become increasingly eccentric and surreal, he risks alienating moderate and independent voters while consolidating a base that may not be enough to secure victory in 2024. His focus on personal grievances, bizarre cultural references, and dismissive attitudes toward real issues like climate change suggest a candidate more interested in entertainment than serious governance. For those who oppose Trump, his recent rallies serve as a stark reminder of what's at stake in the upcoming election. Now more than ever, pro-democracy voters must mobilize, ensuring that Trump's theatrics do not overshadow the real issues facing America.